there's a price to pay. Genuinely sounds like an evil henchman talking to his comic book villain overlord. And so Logan Paul responds, that's the idea. Need to shut it down. And then his friend says, public humiliation is always more effective. To which Logan Paul says, I totally agree. But the evidence that Coffeezilla submitted to this case was not just the text messages that were shown. In fact, there were over 100 pages of exhibits that he put forth when he did this.
But then there were other exhibits like past subpoenas that Logan Paul has issued, and the list of proposed witnesses in the two lawsuits to show that the overlap between the two cases is fairly substantial.
Y'all want the textbook definition of the Streisand effect? There it is.
Did Logan Paul just cause the failure of his own case? Good afternoon, everybody. Some of you guys might be aware of Logan Paul's current court battle with Coffeezilla. It's now being brought back into the limelight after some malicious DMs came out where Logan Paul said directly that he wants to ruin Coffeezilla. If you guys haven't seen them, don't worry, they're brought up in a video today. But more importantly, it's being debated on whether or not this will affect Logan's case. Not just because they look bad, because they do, don't worry, but also because he has been panicking on this being used against him in court. There are also questions on what else he's worried about, but due to some of the evidence being confidential, we don't know the full extent just yet. But with that said, watch this video with me and learn how much damage Logan Paul just caused for himself.
Logan Paul is freaking out about his defamation case against Coffeezilla, and in his panic, he might have just screwed himself. What is up, Quaker Nation? Now, the main thing that we're talking about today has to do with some sealed documents that Coffeezilla included in his evidence that he put forward recently in a motion to combine his defamation case with the case against Logan Paul, claiming that CryptoZoo was a scam. And it seems that Logan Paul is really scared of that sealed evidence getting released to the public, and he's so scared that he's recently filed a motion to keep that stuff confidential, but it inadvertently might have just given Coffeezilla an opportunity to argue that it should be public, and it might go public because of Logan's actions. But before we jump in...
Now, I believe like what he's going to show right now is the DMs between Logan Paul and his friend, his anonymous friend, where he literally said about Coffeezilla that he wants to humiliate him publicly. I think that was the one.
That obligatory begging for subs.
Please subscribe. Maybe even just like the video, please. I want to overplay my head.
For real though, appreciate you guys being here.
His Mr. Beast coverage was really good back then.
Subscribing to the channel. You guys are the reason I can do this. Hope you guys are enjoying the content. Might be a slow month, but who cares? I'm having fun with this. Hope you guys.
Slow month? Bro, do you cover like Even Hassan? Because like it has been a fucking pipeline since then.
And
for like a month straight.
I'll flip a coin for you guys. This is a 2015 North Carolina quarter. Call it heads or tails. Heads or tails. It's tails. It's tails. You can't see it, but it's tails. It's a cool little design. So if you call it tails, good job. Woo! Now you have to subscribe, have to like the video. If you got heads, get your ass next video. Okay, hope you enjoy. Now, if you don't know what's going on, I've got a video talking about this. It'll show up over here in this corner probably. But in that video, I'm really just talking about Legal Bites video, which is what we're also talking about today. So please go check them out. Subscribe. They're the ones that have been breaking the news about this case. And I'll put a link down.
Bro, God bless like lawyer YouTube channels, right? Because for like normal commentary channels, like Quinn, if you're right, and also me by extension, we cannot fucking understand, you know, lengthy ass documents. So for any lawyer that, you know, goes out of the way to find like an online archive of those documents and actually explain it, like spoon feed us the what it means, God bless them.
To their videos.
Like, they make like these stories so much more easier to understand.
Description as well. But in essence, there is a defamation case against Coffeezilla that has been put forth by Logan Paul, and at the same time, there's a class action lawsuit against Logan Paul for CryptoZoo brought on by the investors that put money into CryptoZoo. A couple weeks ago, Coffeezilla filed a motion to essentially join the two cases together to save time and money. When he filed this motion,
I was going Coffeezilla. Honestly, I watched the video before a tiny bit, but I just scrapped the video. I thought it was Logan Paul who fucking wanted to mix them together. And in my opinion, in my non-professional dumbass opinion, that sounds bad. Because like those are two very severe cases not being mixed together. Oh, wait, hold on, I just realized, yeah. Well, I guess to like give himself like some legitimacy, he wants to mix them together, you know, so he can carry the proof from that into this one. Oh,
he also added more evidence to the case, including some very interesting texts of Logan Paul essentially admitting to him not actually doing this for defamation, but just to make Coffeezilla's life more difficult. Just some real cartoon villain stuff. There's a price to pay. Genuinely sounds like an evil henchman talking to his comic book villain overlord. And so
he does. Like, this is not surprising because like we know Logan Paul, but like seeing it, like, you know, him write out in text, it's so much more like just shocking.
Logan Paul responds, that's the idea. Need to shut it down. And then his friend says, public humiliation is always more effective. To which Logan Paul says, I totally agree. Well,
I totally agree.
What I didn't know at the time and what I didn't share with you is covered in Legal Bites' new video titled Logan Paul is panicking about worse evidence getting out. I'm going to show you the clip in a second, but the evidence that Coffeezilla submitted to this case.
And it's one of those things where, like, you know, Coffeezilla could not do this because like people like him, they will lose respect, quite a bit, if he did this. With Logan Paul, he has the advantage that nobody gives a shit about him, right? I mean, nobody likes him at all. So if he does a very scummy tactic, no one bat an eye. So he has that complete advantage of being a complete scumbag.
Not just the text messages that were shown. In fact,
he can say that publicly, and if it leaks, nobody will care that much. It would make his case look worse, in court. But online, he would not lose any support because, I mean, at this point, who actually likes him? Who watches him? Who likes him? Maybe just kids. If they see that, they're going to give a shit.
Were over 100 pages of exhibits that he put forth when he did this. And included in that were also exhibits that were under seal, essentially confidential except for the judge and, of course, Logan Paul and Coffeezilla and their legal teams.
But what I didn't talk about in that video was that Coffeezilla actually had over 100 pages of exhibits.
Now, what I want to know is, how was it how did it get online? I'm guessing most cases like this, when the one to be confidential, they have a very small window with public before it gets sealed. I'm guessing that's how we found it.
A lot of those were text messages, of course. But then there were other exhibits like past subpoenas that Logan Paul has issued. And
either that, the request to have it confidential was denied.
The list of proposed witnesses in the two lawsuits to show that the overlap between the two cases is fairly substantial. And then there were 4 exhibits which we couldn't see because Coffeezilla filed them under seal. What that means is that these exhibits were filed so that the judge can see them and the opposing party can see them, but the general public that has access to the public docket, basically you and me, is blocked from viewing them. This is very common in litigation, and it comes from the fact that American courts have actually a very liberal discovery standard. If the information that's being requested by the other side is relevant to the issues, then chances are you're going to have to give that information up. And then you can't always control what they are going to do with that information. So then you might ask, what happens in litigation when this highly sensitive information needs to be turned over to the opposing party? Well, that's when parties can seek what's called a protective order. A protective order happens where the parties go back and forth over categories that they think should be kept confidential between the parties. And
her writing looks really nice, actually.
So as
that was an After Effects.
Legal Bytes said, they put some of this evidence under seal. And they do that to keep it private because it could be medical records or something talking about children, things like that. I think the biggest thing here is just that Coffeezilla is doing an excellent job at playing this by the book. In Legal Bytes' own words, he's doing everything properly here. Him and his team should get a little bit of an applause because this is an absolute palate.
I mean, it is their job, right? As his lawyers, they ought to follow the book.
In comparison,
this is a fucking law.
Carl Jobs, Billy Mitchell legal battle that had just ended shortly. And so now
that's really good. I saw it before. I was like, oh my god, he's right. Actually, that case on Jobs' fault. That was a much worse example, a much worse case because he fucked it up royally.
What's going on? You said that.
Also, bear in mind, have you guys seen the news of the fucking Carl Job having to pay 1.8 million potentially, allegedly, from what I saw, because he has to pay 1.8 million to Mitchell for damages and also paying both his attorneys and also Mitchell's attorneys. So he had to pay them. I think it was much less than that before, but now after calculating all the costs, of both attorneys, it totaled up to that much, nearly $2 million from what I understand so far. Don't put that in the record. I haven't looked into that much, but if it's true.
Logan Paul was panicking. This is all confidential stuff. What's the dealio? Well, of course, Logan Paul's team and himself get to look at what is under that seal because it's only unavailable to us, the public. And what he sees in this is freaking him out to such a degree that he has started to speculate and is getting a bit conspiratorial. Here's what I mean by that.
He says that there are 3 documents that Paul marked as confidential when he produced them in discovery to Coffeezilla. And then he describes them, but it's all redacted, so we can't see them. Okay, normal stuff so far. But then Paul says, hey, these documents are attached as exhibits to Coffeezilla's recent motion, and he clearly did that as a dirty litigation tactic just to harm, embarrass, and prejudice me. So whatever evidence this is, clearly Logan Paul thinks...
if you say you wanna humiliate him publicly, I don't give a shit, if he tries to get back at you.
That it's embarrassing, it's prejudicial, it's harmful to either his case or his reputation, one way or the other. Specifically, he says this: although the redacted documents
just don't say then, douchebag,
were attached as exhibits to defendant's recent motion, it is apparent that those materials have no relevance to the motion or defendant's arguments, and instead were almost certainly filed for the sole and improper purpose of providing defendants with an excuse to advocate for their public disclosure in order to harm and embarrass the plaintiff. It is apparent the defendant's motivating purpose for introducing these materials into the judicial record was to cause harm and prejudice to plaintiff.
So main point number 1, it is very clear that Logan Paul is talking about what is sealed. It could have been construed that maybe he was speaking about...
I can't focus on yawning.
Any of the other evidence that was provided by Coffeezilla, like the text messages that we have gone over previously. But he specifically...
I'm not yawning at the video, right? It's I came out from the gym and I always get tired as shit
that it is the confidential exhibit, so we know for sure that he's speaking about those, and those are the ones that he's worried about. Now, like Legal Bytes points out, there's a lot of stuff that is currently, completely redacted, so we don't even know the specifics of it, but it seems that the main argument that Logan Paul's team has come up with in this situation is that none of the evidence that they're specifically talking about, that being the stuff that's under seal, has any relevancy to Coffeezilla filing the motion to conjoin the two cases. Immediately in my brain, from the person that has never even looked at a bar bar exam. I can kind of understand this point. Like, let's say it's directly related to the...
No, I don't agree. I feel like, if you have actual proof of your opponent, the plaintiff, whatever, or defendant, whichever one he is right now, if they're being like, oh my God, I want to humiliate him publicly, and you can prove that in court, with like the receipts, yeah, that would make him look more, like that would prove like, just being malicious, and this case is just complete bullshit. Like this case against Coffeezilla is moronic. Like it was meant to threaten him to just shut up about his bizarre crypto shit.
Defamation case and the argument being made there. Legally, I guess that would make sense that because it has nothing to do with the motion he filed to conjoin the cases, and it's just specifically about that case, that it wouldn't make sense for him to include it there. I can kind of see that argument. But
yeah, but like then he wants to conjoin it.
At the same time,
so like, I feel you want to bring both evidence, or all the evidence from both sides.
We know for a fact that Logan is scared and that this is more of a knee-jerk reaction because he didn't do this properly. What I mean by that is this motion to preserve confidentiality, all that good stuff that Logan's doing, it seems like he kind of skipped procedure, and in doing so is wasting people's time again, which seems to be his MO based off of what had come out in his texts previously.
Wait a second, Logan Paul's not following procedure? He's a douchebag.
In essence, some of the information and exhibits, evidence that they are presenting that they're keeping confidential, if one of these legal teams wants some of that evidence to be public, there's an actual process that they can go through where they speak just with the other team and make an argument like through emails and stuff, basically saying, hey, we want to make sure that this is public. And they're trying to see if they can come to an agreement without bringing this in front of the
I say it now as well. After like watching like so many videos like this about, attorneys and legal shit, it made me realize, fuck being a lawyer.
Judge, because judges...
Every single story just sounds miserable shit. Oh, get the evidence, talk to the attorneys, spend a shit ton of time in court, arguing with the judge.
Are very busy, as Legal Bites points out.
It is anticipated that defendants will argue that these materials, by virtue of having been filed by defendants in connection with their recent motion to stay or transfer proceedings, are now judicial records that should be unsealed due to the presumption of public right of access to court records. But I don't think that's the case, because Coffeezilla can just contest the confidential status of the information at any time anyway. He doesn't have to slime his way through some sort of a back door in order to get that done. The protective order that's in place for this lawsuit outlines steps for disputing the confidentiality designation. This is often referred to as a meet and confer process. And the purpose of the meet and confer process is to try to limit the number of times when the parties need to involve the judge in these very discovery disputes. Judges are notoriously busy, and so they don't like seeing their time wasted by having to referee discovery disputes if the parties can resolve it themselves. Typically, the side that's bringing the issue to the judge is going to want to also show the judge, hey, we tried to resolve this issue before involving you. And they'll do that by attaching an exhibit with copies of emails back and forth, either substantively going through the issues or at the very least referring to phone calls where they did that over the phone. But noticeably here, I don't see anything like that attached.
So like she said, typically go through the process, talk to each other back and forth, and when Logan Paul filed this motion, there was no exhibits that he included showing that he went
once again, he rushed it,
through and did his due diligence. And
it's not shocking to me. I mean, it's not surprising me, but it's just shocking, how he's been in court. He can't do a proper job.
Had this conversation.
Like his attorneys that he trusts, even the scummy, just like him.
Had this back and forth with Coffeezilla's team, which means that on top of the evidence,
at the same time, I feel like most lawyers are scummy. So
like Coffeezilla has already provided, indicating that Logan is happy to waste everybody's time and is just willing to do this to ruin the lives of the people who have wronged him, or just do this to make.
Yeah, but as well, from what I've seen so far, right, it seems more like a battle of attrition where he can't win legally, but he can slowly bleed Coffeezilla to the point of just making him so annoyed, okay, fine, I give up, and that's how it goes. Because legally, I think from what I remember, right, from what I saw of Coffeezilla's video, he makes a very fine argument, so fine that anyone suing him would not win. But if you can make him concede with how long it takes and how expensive it gets, then that would make sense.
Coffeezilla's life harder.
It's the fucking scummiest victory ever in a scenario.
He's just adding more fuel.
So scummy, but he can still try to get it.
The fire that is burning his case to the ground. And again, it plays more to that panic response, because you would expect, with the knowledge that this other information has been presented, that being his text messages, him calling himself a petty billionaire, and how that's going to look to a jury, judge, or the people whose time is being wasted. I'm sorry for hitting you, baby. You would expect that at least his team would go, hey, let's do our due diligence and try not to make this look worse for us, since you've already been proven based off this evidence to be in the market for wasting people's time. But at the bare minimum, that information wasn't included in the motion, which does look bad. Maybe they did have the conversation, but it's hard to believe that, since it would only provide more defense or more benefit of the doubt to them.
I feel like there would be evidence that they talked it out.
Had they included it in their motion. But now we get to the hilarious part of this motion that Logan Paul has filed. In doing so, he has actually made it more possible for Coffeezilla to get this information, to get this evidence that's behind the seal, released to the public.
And the thing is, if Coffeezilla wasn't planning to argue that these documents should be unsealed, he's likely going to at least want to respond to this motion. And as of the filming of this video, he hasn't responded yet. But if I were him, I would at least make the argument to the court, now that the issue has been put out there, that, well, hey, since we're talking about it, yeah, this shouldn't be confidential. And the public has a right to see how its judicial system is operating. And that includes
being
something as important as this information. information.
That last point Legal Bites makes about
the American, court history, right, has been very scummy. But if they let Logan Paul win against Coffeezilla, oh my, that would be so fucking, that would be like an egregious case.
Coffeezilla coming forward. That is the best part of this entire thing. Y'all want the textbook definition of the Streisand effect? There it is. Logan Paul, in filing this motion against confidential documentation and exhibits, evidence, whatnot, that Coffeezilla and his legal team have at no point ever indicated that they plan to make public, he has created a legitimate opportunity that Coffeezilla wouldn't have had originally, outside of him actually having to present it and file it himself, to make the argument that it should be public for whatever reason it is.
So what you're saying is that Logan Paul is a retard?
Now, Legal Bites points out we actually don't know who would win this argument here because we can't see any of the evidence as it's all been redacted. So Logan Paul could have a good point here. I'm not going to dismiss that. But right now, we're just looking at how he's reacted to this and the procedures that they've gone through and some of them that they've skipped to indicate that maybe this is a knee-jerk panic reaction, in which case he has actually...
Definitely, from what I've seen so far, it definitely
just made it worse for himself. In an effort to conceal this information, like the Streisand effect, he may have inadvertently made sure that it will go public. But I'm very interested to hear...
can I just say, right? Deserved. 100% deserved.
What your guys' thoughts are. Any lawyers in the comments, I'm surprised you have time to be here. Thank you for spending time here. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
It was a short video. How long? Yeah, 13 minutes.
If you're an armchair lawyer, I'd love to hear from you and argue with you in the comments as well. But that does conclude the video. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing if you want more.
I'll give it a like. That was a pretty good video. Yeah. Holy shit. I wish I got more info about how it started. But I'm guess I'm a little bit late to this. So already evolved to this point. But holy shit, I mean, I had no idea where it got you to this point so far, where it was like a Streisand effect, where now we know exactly what he said and also how it's gonna potentially fuck him over in court. Which I think he deserves to be paid back for this, get revenge. Cause how can you write that shit, DM with your friend and then be like, when it shows him in court? Cause if there would be one piece of evidence that would show malicious nature, it would be those fucking DMs. You look fucking psychotic in those ones. So I feel like, this would help Coffeezilla's case against him or help his defense. But at the same time, most cases like this would take years to see the end of it. And also, well, if Logan Paul wants a tactic of, fighting a war of attrition, he might win that. He's much richer and he would not give a shit, about spending that much money. As well, he has the ego. He has the ego to patiently wait for this for over many years or many months potentially. I don't know. But with that said, we'll have to see in the future, what else happens from this. Because I feel right now, Coffeezilla's winning because of how bad Logan Paul is looking. But at the same time, there might be a huge pivot in this battle where he loses and Logan Paul comes up victorious. I pray to God that's never the case. Fuck that guy, honestly.